This is realistic Minecraft. One of the hardest modpacks ever created. Wherein every completion takes around 1000 in-game days. And in this video, me and my friend continue our journey. After surviving the first 100 days, building a home, bringing water to our base, automating our first millstone, setting up farming and even finishing the bloomery, which is used to make iron, we're finally ready to take things to the next level. The question is, can we survive another 100 days and push deeper into the kinetic age? Keep watching to find out. We started this journey on day 100 by working on something very important, a greenhouse. Winter is coming fast, and since we're already in late summer, we really need to get moving. The greenhouse is a large multi-block structure and requires a ton of materials, so making this, it's not gonna be easy. I wanted to begin by crafting the climate station, but I quickly realized it needs a brass mechanism. That's made from brass rod on the bronze anvil, and brass itself is created by alloying copper and zinc in the charcoal forge. Copper wasn't a problem, we had more than enough of it, but zinc, there was a big problem. We had none, and we didn't even know where it spawns. So Diamond and I went on an expedition to find zinc, which spawns in a gneiss biome. It's really far from our base, but thankfully we found that biome last episode, so that wasn't really the problem. After some searching, Diamond managed to die, so I had to head back home, give him some of my items and let him go retrieve his stuff. During that process, he died again, meaning he had to go back for his items twice. At some point he even made a hot air balloon, which turned out to be completely useless since we don't have the correct type of coal for it yet. While Diamond was busy looking for zinc, I stayed home and started mining copper because we will need a huge amount for the greenhouse. That meant going back into our old mine, the one that collapsed multiple times last episode. Surprisingly, after some mining, I actually managed to clear out every single ore left in it. I headed back home, crushed the ores with a hammer and threw everything into the sluice. After that, I traveled to one of my waypoints where I knew there was a massive copper vein. At first I couldn't find it, even with prospecting tools, but after checking the surface, I finally spotted the copper exposed on the side of a mountain. You wouldn't expect it to be that high, right? Mining into the ground and it's on the mountain floor. So I started mining, and while trying to recover some supports I didn't need anymore, I had, how do I say that? One of my least proud moments. Just watch. That happened. Meanwhile, Diamond, he was working on an insulated armor, which we'll need in winter to avoid freezing to death. It's extremely hard to make, so for now he only managed to make boots, but at least he made 2 basic sets for us. It's not perfect, but it's a start. We'll slowly upgrade it to full later. Back to me again. Got my items back, mined even more copper and headed home. Around that time, Diamond also managed to bring back another sheep, but unfortunately it was a female, so that little pen situation isn't exactly ideal right now, because 2 women in 1 pen, you probably know how that's gonna end up. When I tried to head out of the mine, I somehow managed to let the entire thing collapse on me again, so yeah. I was dead for the 3rd time, and it was still basically the start of the video. I ran back, grabbed my items and decided it was finally time to make a proper mine. This time I built it with 2 floors, as you can see, placing the 2nd level right here, and honestly it already looks way cleaner, so hopefully it actually works this time. Once I got home with all the copper, I handed everything over to Diamond, so he could start making a bronze hammer to crush it. While he was doing that, I ran over to our farm and expanded it a little bit since I needed room for more seeds. After getting back home, I started working on a lot of rope, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot, okay? Because Diamond finally managed to find zinc, the last material we needed for the brass. The problem is that the zinc vein is really deep underground, so we needed a safe way to get down there. The best solution we came up with was using a rope and digging straight down, placing it as we go. With that plan in mind, Diamond crafted me a bronze shovel and a knife, and I got to work making rope. That meant cutting down a lot, and again, I mean a lot of straw, and slowly turning it into fiber and then into rope. Meanwhile, Diamond was setting up a bloomery which we'll later use to create wrought iron. For now though, brass was still the main priority, and just like that, the bloomery was finished. Now back to me, I was still harvesting straw and crafting ropes, because as I mentioned, the zinc was very far down. After gathering enough, we headed towards Diamond's waypoints. Once we arrived, Diamond started mining straight down. After fighting some zombies in one cave, we broke into another and found uranium, which definitely wasn't what we were looking for. So Diamond kept digging, and finally, there it was, sphalerite, which is basically zinc. We mined into a large cave, placed as many supports as possible, and started mining properly. See, if this cave collapsed, our bodies would be lying hundreds of blocks underground. So a cave collapsing cannot happen. If that happens, it's basically game over. Once we had enough zinc, we made our way back to the surface and headed home. There, we crushed the ores and threw them into the sluice, just like we always do. But there's one thing I haven't shown you yet, and it happened while we were going down into the mine. A group of zombies attacked us, and one of them dropped a backpack. And that item, it gives extra inventory space. I killed the zombie, and the backpack actually dropped. But instead of picking it, Diamond immediately called me over to place more rope. And by the time we came back up, the backpack was gone. It had despawned while we were underground, and I could have picked it after placing the rope. I completely forgot about it. Completely, had no idea it was there. So therefore, another proud moment of mine, right? Now back to the present. We chopped down more trees to prepare another charcoal pit, because we'll need a lot of charcoal to make our first wrought iron. That iron will then be used to craft an engineer's hammer, which lets us build a coke oven, making charcoal much cheaper in the future. Once the pit was ready, we lit it and waited. While that was cooking, Diamond took the zinc, alloyed it with copper, and created a brass ingot. He then forged it into a rod on the anvil and finally crafted the brass mechanism. It took almost 10 in-game days. And with that done, it was finally time to start building the greenhouse. Seems like I was very positive when I was writing it, because I can tell you right now, at least for another 10 to 15 days, didn't even place the first block of that thing. This process started with me gathering everything needed to craft the climate station. That meant making blue dye water, collecting lumber, and having Diamond craft primitive glass. And just like that, we had finished the hardest block of the entire greenhouse. With that done, the next step was casting a huge amount of copper into ingots, and then forging those into rods on the anvil. Doing that manually would take forever, so we decided to set up mold tables and casting channels, which can connect directly to the crucible and make casting much easier. To do that, we needed unfired clay, which is made by combining graphite powder, kaolinite powder and regular clay. We have already done that in the last episode, so it wasn't anything crazy. We had already most of the materials, so we just needed to crush some more graphite. Once that was done, I crafted the fireproof crate and nabbed the first required part. Of course, I immediately ran out of kaolinite, so I took a quick trip to our kaolinite mine from last episode, mined some more, crushed it, and finally crafted all the clay needed for the remaining pieces. After that, I fired everything in the crucible, completing the quest. With that setup finished, I started melting down all of our copper into ingots. However, Diamond stopped me because we needed more fireproof clay to make better ingot molds, since the basic ones break way too often. They are very annoying to work with. These things, they break all the time. So I went out to mine more clay and started grinding graphite again, the long and painful way. Once everything was ready, I crafted enough fireproof clay and nabbed a full set of ingot molds. Now it was finally time to start mining iron. It took this long, but we are finally getting there. We need iron for a ton of recipes right now, and it'll also make building the greenhouse much easier. Luckily, we had already located an iron vein, so we headed to the closest one and started mining. And by us I mean me, because I'm the only person who mines in this mod. While I was underground, Diamond was working on improving our power generation, adding more water wheels to the sea, so we could eventually power multiple machines at once. This time it didn't take too long to find the iron. I mined what I could, brought it home and turned everything into powder. From there I did what we always do, washed it, processed it, and finally ended up with clean iron chunks. During all of this, Diamond also managed to make another pair of blue boots, meaning we now have 2. That sounds great. Hey, but at this pace, no way we're finishing 2 full sets before winter. No way. It takes way too long. We gotta speed this thing up, okay? Also, look at this. This also happened. No idea what he was doing. He just randomly swings an axe twice by killing me. No idea what he was doing. So finally, Diamond threw charcoal and iron into the bloomery and fired it up. All we had to do now was wait 1 in-game day. And just like that, we made our first wrought iron. While Diamond was doing that, I was mining more lignite since we were starting to run out, and as usual, the mine collapsed on me, trapping me inside. That meant Diamond had to craft more supports and throw them down into the vent we just made. Just so I could even get out of there. Well, after that incident, I decided this mine needed an upgrade, so I turned it into a 2-floor mine and added a lot more supports. Once I mined more than enough lignite, I headed back home and stored everything in a chest. At the same time, Diamond was mining iron, since we completely ran out and we needed a lot of it to make a wrought iron anvil, which is another huge step in progression. This anvil will allow us to make a lot of good stuff. Finally have a tools and will really help us get into create more. I then went into a nearby forest to gather more wood, because we burned through a ton of it on support. Meanwhile, Diamond was smelting more iron in the bloomery and also made a filter to clean up all the dust under our crusher. With that done, he started working on the wrought iron anvil by forging double iron ingots. Once those were ready, I crafted the anvil, and just like that, we unlocked so much new progression, so much. With the anvil complete, I started working on the coke oven. For that, I mainly needed fireproof bricks, which are made from fireproof clay, a mix of graphite, kaolinite and regular clay. So I crushed some graphite and headed out to mine kaolinite. While I was doing that, Diamond crafted an engineer's hammer, which is required to build a coke oven. He also made a mechanical saw and hooked it up to our power system near the ocean. And this saw lets us craft wooden components way cheaper. It's really good. We can finally get so much out of mining wood, meaning we will not have to mine wood every single day. It's awesome, you'll see later. He then added even more water wheels to the system, allowing us to power multiple machines at once. Halfway through, we ran out of graphite, so we had to make a trip all the way back to the graphite mine, gather more and start the process all over again. But once everything was ready, I crafted all the fireproof clay I needed, went through the long crafting chain, smelted materials, and finally made the fireproof bricks. Wow, this took forever, at least 5 Minecraft days. I thought it will never end. We were in the mine for so long. It took so long to process everything, way too long. Diamond then formed a coke oven, and just like that, we can now make charcoal way easier. I also cooked some food while we were at it. Looking at the calendar, we have officially entered early autumn. Winter was getting dangerously close and we were still really far away from finishing our war armor. So, not great at all, it's really bad, really bad. I spent some time chopping more wood since we were starting to run low again. While I was doing that, Diamond was busy smelting huge amounts of iron for upcoming recipes and crafting a filter that would be used with the coke oven to prevent pollution. This thing is polluting the air way too much, it's going crazy in there. I also cooked up a new type of bread and sandwich, giving us another food option. After that, I crafted the advanced filter and installed it above the furnace. Around the same time, Diamond finally finished crafting the roller, a massive upgrade that lets us create rods and wires automatically instead of hammering everything on the anvil. And this is going to save us a ton of time, especially for the greenhouse, which we're finally close to starting. I started the video by saying we will do a greenhouse. What's the day right now? Like something like 130? No idea. 130 probably. Still nowhere near creating that thing. It's taking that long. Next, I alloyed more brass and crafted 3 brass mechanisms, which I used to complete 3 more quests by making animal cards, plows and supply cards. Pointless items, at least for us now. We don't have any animal to put this behind. With that done, we moved on to composting. Compost takes 12 in-game days to finish, and it's required for the greenhouse pots. So we crafted a large batch of composters and placed them all down. We then split the work. I gathered all the brown materials using wood ash made from sawdust we had plenty of, which we get from the saw we made, and while I was doing that, Diamond collected all the green materials. After about 15 minutes, every composter was filled. Now all we could do was wait. While the compost was processing, I finished crafting the final prospector's tool, completing yet another quest. Meanwhile, Diamond wanted to get to constructing the greenhouse, but it required a lot of primitive glass, which he melted in the crucible and used to craft the greenhouse walls. I then headed towards the ocean to search for sulfur, which spawns near basalt. This turned into a very long and painful trip. Eventually Diamond joined me, but after almost 30 minutes of running around and searching, we returned home with basically nothing. Well, almost nothing. While I was waiting at the edge of the ocean, I... look at that guy. Watch Diamond get chased by a shark, which immediately killed him, and since we couldn't safely get back into the water to retrieve his items, I told him to lure the shark to the shore. There, we managed to kill it, giving us some brand new meat in the process. I'm sure this is how it would work in real life. It's just say, hey shark, come here, and go to the shore. Well, after that I started crafting a saddle, which took forever, thanks to all the leather processing and microcrafting, but eventually I had one. I followed a waypoint to a horse I'd found earlier and I led it back home. Before we can ride it, we need to increase its familiarity. Horrible word, no idea if I said it right. By feeding it, but at least it's ours now. While all that was happening, Diamond figured out another way to get sulfur, from black sand. He used it to craft a redstone torch, which was then used to make a fan. This fan will allow us to wash ores way faster than the sluice we've been using since day one. A massive quality of life upgrade. This thing will finally allow us to be so much quicker when processing ores. The worst part of everything, processing ores. I then made a bunch of andesite alloy and Diamond used most of it to craft cogwheels and improve our create setup. The system was finally starting to look efficient. To be honest, it doesn't look really efficient if you look at it. In my opinion, it looks pretty messy. I was finally able to ride my horse. That was really out of context, but whatever. I was able to ride my horse. My next goal was crafting a backpack. I checked the receipt and I realized we actually had everything required. It was just going to take a lot of microcrafting. So instead of wasting your time, enjoy the cut. Hey, I'm back. The backpack. Whew. This took forever, okay? I'm writing this like 2 hours later. It took forever. I had to go through the entire hide processing chain, which meant a lot happened while I was busy crafting. Diamond started working on the greenhouse. Hey, finally! Emptying all the compost we made and finally setting it up, but we quickly ran into a problem, as we always do. We needed way more copper than we had, and at the moment, we could only place 4 planters, and we needed over 40. So, I headed back into the copper mines to gather as much as possible, while Diamond upgraded our ore washing system. Instead of using the slow sluice we've relied on since day one, he switched everything over to create power washing setup. And once it was finished, we dumped all of our copper into the system. And wow, it was so damn fast. Diamond even added another millstone to speed up crushing, since we had a massive backlog of ores to process. After everything was done, we ended up with 32 copper ingots. Meanwhile, I also started gathering more string by processing leaves. After that, I went to check on our farm because growth had slowed down a lot as we were entering late autumn. And what I saw, honestly, it scared me. The pond was slowly turning into ice, and almost all of our crops were dead. Every single crop. I mean not every single crop, some, but still. They died because it was too cold. The water was freezing and soon, are we gonna start freezing? I don't know. You don't know either. Just keep watching and you'll find out. Winter was closer than we thought. We have to finish the greenhouse soon because we're running out of both time and food. Yes, wow, I like how I written that. When I got home, I told Diamond to start building the greenhouse as fast as possible, and he immediately got to work. He ran out of copper halfway through, so he had to smelt more, but after that, the structure was almost complete. Meanwhile, I focused on the planters. The first step was figuring out which crops we actually wanted to grow, since each crop requires its own specific planter type. Once I made up my mind, I started crafting, but instantly ran out of clay. So of course, I had to head out and mine a ton more, but thankfully I had a lot of copper deposits saved in my weapons, so it was pretty easy to do that. With enough clay collected, I napped it into unfired bricks and fired them in the charcoal forge. While I was doing that, Diamond finally finished the greenhouse structure itself. I crafted our first pot and a watering can, and just like that, we completed the greenhouse quest, and officially built one on our own. This greenhouse took so long. Since the beginning of the video, we were working only on the greenhouse. As so many steps to do it, but it's finally done, and we will hopefully have food. While waiting on more materials, I also gathered additional infected leaves. Once everything was ready, we started mass producing pots and placing them inside the greenhouse. Diamond filled them with seeds and we were finally growing food again. Honestly, it was way too close. We still needed more planters to fully utilize the greenhouse, so I started raffling composters to prepare the next batch, but before I could even properly get started, the season changed. We woke up in the first signs of autumn. Our apples had finally grown, but the grass around us turned into a dull yellow mess. Winter was coming fast. On the bright side, Diamond made us a fruit salad using the apples, another new food source added to the list. With the composters filled again, it was time for our next big objective. We were running out of food storage space. Before, we had no food and out of nowhere we are running out of space. You can't make this up. To solve this problem, we can either craft more pots, but not really gonna help us with that because when food stops growing maybe in the winter, I don't know if it's gonna be growing in the greenhouse the entire time, it's gonna go bad in the pots. So we needed a cellar, a much better solution. It's a relatively simple multi-block structure compared to the greenhouse and food lasts significantly longer inside it. The hardest component is the climate station, which we already built for the greenhouse, so this should be easy, right? Well, not exactly. I need more leather. And if you know anything about this mod pack, you know that working with leather is painfully slow. Thankfully, we still had some height partial processed, so I didn't have to start completely from scratch. At least that made things slightly less miserable. With the climate station finished, I placed it inside the cellar. Diamond had already built the structure underneath our house, crafting the bricks for it, which was actually pretty easy since we had all the materials at home. After installing the station, I headed out to a new copper vein Diamond had found. We were completely out of copper, and since we needed brass doors for the cellar, and brass requires copper, I had no choice but to mine more. The vein was pretty small, so I cleared the entire thing in one sitting. On my way back home, it started snowing. My temperature dropped fast, and I was getting cold way quicker than I expected. The winter is getting close pretty quickly, you know? This is definitely not a good sign. Thankfully, just as I reached the house, the snow stopped, so that was pretty close. I stored the copper, and while I was out mining, Diamond had been organizing the cellar, moving all of our food inside, including the massive amount of apples growing on our trees. We went from barely surviving to having shelves overflowing with food. The apples, it's insane. You take them down and they are there in 10 minutes. We have so many apples. And the worst part, they only stay good for 1 month. In what world do apples stay good for 1 month? Apples can stay good an entire year if they are in a cellar. Who made this thing? It makes no sense. How realistic is this thing? Not at all. And also, what's not realistic, that Diamond crafted a weather deflector, which prevents destructive storms like tornadoes from damaging our base. So realistic. Why don't they have that in America? You could call it cheating, but it's in the mod pack, and there's no way I'm rebuilding this house. So for now, we left it in a chest because I want to eventually build a tall tower with a tornado siren on top of it. But that's a project for later. Next, I cleaned up the inside of the house, then moved outside to reorganize the exterior. I relocated the charcoal forge and lowered it 1 block into the ground to make the area look cleaner. After that, I gathered more leaves to produce additional string. Meanwhile, Diamond was crafting some kind of a glider which, yes, it actually lets you fly. No idea how we realized this light, but look at it, it's just flying on the sky. We're talking about how realistic it is to make a tornado deflector. Well, look how realistic is this thing. Yeah, not at all. I then crafted more bricks and expanded the cellar so it could fit all of our shelves. Those shelves were filling up fast with apples. It's kind of insane how quickly we went from starving to having way too much food. Just look at that, it's overflowing. I also finished crafting the few pots for the greenhouse. To wrap up the day, I built ladders and small platforms around our apple trees, since reaching the highest apples was basically impossible otherwise. Not like it even matters, we have so many of them anyway. With food secured, it was time for the next big step, the blast furnace. This will allow us to create pig iron, which we can then refine into steel, a massive progression milestone. To prepare, I headed back into the iron mine. Meanwhile, Diamond crafted a mechanical mixer, another create machine we'll need soon. About an hour later, Diamond joined me underground and together we cleared out the entire mine. By the end of it, we had almost a double chest full of raw uncrushed ore. Look at the chest! I've never seen this many iron in one place, and it's not even crushed. We're gonna have so much iron, I'm so excited, oh my god, so excited. At this point, we definitely need to build a crate crusher. There's no way we are crushing this with a hammer. But before getting ahead of ourselves, I had to clean up our storage again. The chests were starting to turn into a complete mess, and if you know something about Diamond, you know he's definitely the reason the chests are filling up with mess. I'm sorting stuff out, I'm sure he doesn't, because there's no way I'm the one who makes this mess. No way. That's why I started working on a create mechanical press. First I had to craft a casing, then a gearbox and finally the press itself, but for the press I needed double iron ingots, and of course we had just run out of iron, which is exactly why we mined so much earlier. So that's why I started smelting more, and while I was waiting for that to finish, I improved the area around our charcoal pit, replacing the grass with a nicer looking floor. Meanwhile, Diamond was mixing up grout, which we'll later use to make flint and brick, a much better tool for starting fire. A flint and brick. Have you ever heard about it? Well, I didn't, but it sounds so funny. Flint and brick. Whatever. Once the iron was ready, I finished crafting a depot, which is placed under the press for automation. I handed the parts to Diamond so he could set everything up, and then I headed down into our lignite mine to gather more coal since we were starting to run low again. And somehow, this mine collapsed on me again. Again. Yep, great. Yeah. You go into a mine and never came back up again. So honestly, no idea why. I did everything right, but once again, I was trapped underground. So Diamond had to calm down and rescue me. With enough lignite collected, we returned home and started crushing and washing all the iron ore we mined earlier. And let me tell you, we had a lot. While we were processing all the iron, I crafted a bunch more andesite alloy since we were running low again. I also expanded our setup by adding several more casing tables, making our metal production even faster. After that, we actually took a little break from the modpack and returned about a month later, and the first thing I started working on was getting a latex sieve. To get it, you have to sift dirt in a sieve, and it only has 0.5% chance of dropping. So yeah, it's not exactly easy. I sifted through about almost 4 stacks of dirt and didn't get a single one, so I had to go mine more dirt and start the entire process all over again. And meanwhile, Diamond was just preparing all of the iron sheets needed for the blast furnace. And then finally, while listening to some absolute banger YouTube Shorts music, so listen to that. Hey, just banger YouTube Shorts music. Can't prove me wrong. Diamond immediately crafted a tree tap and I planted the sapling, hoping it would grow quickly. After that, I made some more clean water since we were starting to run low again. With that done, it was finally time to build the blast furnace. Diamond had been preparing for the whole time. This furnace will allow us to create pig iron. Pig iron, that's a real name. Google it. I also googled it. It happens before you make steel. It's pig iron because it's pink, so pig iron. No pig, whatever. which will later turn into steel, a huge step forward in progression. While Diamond was assembling the blast furnace, I started building the tower I mentioned earlier. I didn't really have a good plan, so I was just mostly winging it the entire time, but honestly, I think it turned out pretty good. Hey, look at that! Finished tower! Just took so much wood, but hey, it's looking pretty good now. Right as I was finishing it, a snowstorm rolled in. A snowstorm? You hear me, right? Making it impossible to work outside. Standing at the top of the tower, oh, the snow is going absolutely crazy. So look at that, wind howling towards me. It was bad. So while I was dealing with that, hey, Diamond was trying to get the blast furnace fully set up. It ended up taking way too much iron than we expected, so the process was slower than we planned. Later I took our flying machine and flew over to the geode we had found earlier to mine some quartz. We're going to need it for our next big goal, but more on that later. I crushed all the quartz we needed, then set out to find cinnabar, which is used to make redstone, but about 10 minutes into my journey, Damon stopped me. Turns out, we had already found cinnabar earlier and even had made a waypoint for it. Just forgot. It'd been a while, okay? So I turned around and headed back home. By the time I got there, Diamond had just finished the blast furnace, so we both hopped into our flying machine and headed straight towards the waypoint. Once we arrived, we found crawlinite underground and mined a good amount of it. Back at home, we crushed and washed it, finally getting the redstone dust we needed. And with that, we could finally begin working on 21 mechanical crafters, a massive step forward in create progression. But there was a problem. We only had 22 days left before the end of this video, so we had to move fast. The first step was crafting 21 brass ingots, which meant a lot of alloying, but I eventually got it done. After that, I turned them into all the gears we needed. Meanwhile, Diamond was using our brand new blast furnace to produce pig iron. It still makes me laugh. Pig iron. Who thought of that name? Whatever. From there, he moved on to making steel. While he handled that, I went back into the mines to gather more lignite since we were running low again. And then, he finally finished. We officially had steel. And not just a little bit either. Enough for Diamond to craft an entire steel anvil. And even a steel axe for me. What an upgrade. Next I headed out to mine more kaolinite so I could make additional fireproof clay, which we needed for more molds, casting tables and channels to speed everything up. At the same time we unlocked the steel edge along with a major quest line involving a new alloying method using a Tinker's Construct furnace, opening up a new stage of progression. Diamond also crafted rose quartz, another key component to the mechanical crafters. Meanwhile, I finished producing all the andesite alloy I needed and used it to craft the shafts, which then turned into all the encased chain drives required for the setup. And somewhere in between all that, I tapped out latex tree and collected some latex, which honestly, we don't need it right. So no idea what we're going to use it for yet, but I'm sure it'll come handy later. With all of that done, we came up to a pretty hard decision. We had two options. Either we keep pushing for the mechanical crafters, which would mean spending a ton of time mining more iron and probably not finishing it in time for the end of the video. Or we switch things up and start working on a Tinker's Construct smeltery, a small multi-block that's pretty difficult for us to build right now, but would make producing iron way easier. We thought about it for a bit and decided to go the hard way. We are building the smeltery. Diamond immediately got started crafting all the seared bricks needed for the structure, while I headed out on a mission to gather gold, which we had previously found at the bottom of the ocean. After a while, Diamond joined me, and together we mined enough gold to get the job done. We brought it back home and turned it all into gold sheets, getting one step closer to finishing the smeltery. With the gold sheets done, we moved on to producing a large amount of cast iron. From that, we crafted double iron ingots and cast iron sheets, all of which are essential for making steel. I let Diamond handle the steel production while I headed out to hunt animals for leather. After getting enough, I started processing it so we'd have a full supply ready for future use. Meanwhile, Diamond created another blast furnace, which will play a key role in the smeltery setup. Next, I started working on the deployer, a create machine required for more advanced crafting recipes we'll need later. I was almost done, but of course, there was a problem. We ran out of copper, and copper is critical for alloying, so I set off to find another copper vein while Diamond went mining for mining for creepers. Are you kidding me? Who wrote that into the script? I didn't. Mining for creepers. Okay, Diamond went mining for creepers to get her gunpowder. Have you ever heard that someone was mining for creepers? There's no way I wrote that. Someone changed my script. Who's changing my script? Someone changed that. There's no way I'm mining creepers. He went out to kill creepers to gather more gunpowder. And I also took a moment to refill our water supply since we were running low again. And after a while, Diamond finally found a new copper vein. He went looking for creepers and there he was looking for copper. No idea how that happened. It's in the script, so it's probably correct. Now thinking about it, it probably might not be. Mining creepers and now this. Oh my gosh, someone's changing my script. I followed his waypoint, joined him and started mining. While I was there, I also gathered some extra wood. We're always running out of it anyway, and once we had enough copper, I brought it back home and stored it. And with that, Diamond finally finished crafting the TNT he needed. Diamond crafted 4 bombs from a single TNT and used them on the double iron ingots, turning them into compressed iron ingots. But there was a catch. This method only has a 33% chance of succeeding. And of course, we lost 2 of them. That meant we were 1 ingot short. So Diamond had to go back, craft more double ingots and repeat the entire process all over again. And while doing that, he also made the brass hand, finally allowing us to complete the deployer. I connected it to our create setup and assembled the seared heater. From there, I crafted the seared fuel tank and then used it to create the seared melter. And just like that, we had completed the entire Tinker's Construct smeltery. All that was left to do was build it, and Diamond handled that part. With the smeltery finally in place, I started terraforming around our furnace area and prepared a large batch of mud bricks, planning to place them underneath everything once they finished drying. Meanwhile, Diamond used the new smeltery to melt gold and create casts, completing a few more quests. These are going to be incredibly useful later on. He then moved on to preparing water bottles for the mechanical crafters, though sadly we wouldn't manage to finish those in this episode. While waiting for my bricks to dry, I crafted a lamp, knocking out another early quest, and then made a part builder, which will be essential for working with Tinker's Construct in the next episode. Eventually my bricks finished drying, and after placing them down I realized that it didn't nearly make enough, so started another batch. This time though, ran out of time. No way those bricks are drying before the end of the episode, so guess we'll have to finish this in the next one. With nothing left to do, just watching the bricks dry, we waited as night slowly turned into morning. And standing there, looking over everything we had built, I couldn't help but think about how far we'd come, and how much more there still is to do. And then the sun rose, one final time. Day 200! Hey, look at that! Finally, we're almost out of the early game. But the next video, just because what's coming next, you are not ready for. Everything we've done so far, that was just the beginning. Because in the next video, we don't just progress, we explode forward. So, thanks so much for watching the video. Right now you're about to see some of the funniest outtakes I had while recording the voiceover for this entire video, but hey, there was a lot, trust me. So, if that's not really something you want to see, you can click on the video on screen, because YouTube thinks you're going to love it, and hey, if you made it this far, you'll probably enjoyed the video, so consider subscribing, because this isn't the end. You can definitely expect a 300 days video at some point. After some searching, Diamond managed to die, so I had to head back home, he then forgot. He then forced it into a rod on the anvil, and we finally had it. And with that done, at the same time, Diamond was mining iron, since we were completely Once I mined more than enough. It's so fun. I spent some time. Now all we could do was wait. while the compost was processing, guys. Before we can ride it, we need to increase its familiarity. Its familiarity. Before we can ride it, we need to increase its familiarity. Horrible world. What? Fuck. Before we can ride it, so we both hopped into our flying machine and heaped, which we needed for more mod. Next, I headed out into the mine. Way easier in the long run. Is critical, and copper is critical for alloying,